Hello and welcome. My name is Isobel Ripley and I am a certified fertility awareness educator. How did I get here, I hear you ask? Well, it is a question I ask myself often because I didn't have the traditional route into women's health. I actually did my training in contemporary dance. I have a degree in contemporary dance, and for a while I was dancing professionally. But my path took some twists and turns and I have ended up here, and I'm so happy about it, and I wanted to share with you how I got here. I started my periods around the age of 14. My mum welcomed me into the cycling world in a really special way, which is quite unusual. I have two sisters, an older and a younger, and for each of us she created a box. Well, she bought a box, a very beautiful box, and in the couple of years leading up to when she thought we were going to start our periods, she asked all the women in our family and in our wider community to put in there a gift or a letter or something to welcome us into womanhood. And then she sat us down and we had tea and we had chocolate and we talked about it, and it was a really positive and formational experience, which really laid the foundation of me feeling the importance and the power of having a menstrual cycle and the significance of what that means for me as a woman, and helping me to understand what womanhood is to me. And yes, it was also a little bit uncomfortable because I was like, oh my God, all these women now know that I've started my periods, but I'm still so glad that she did that for all of us. I didn't get such an education in the physiology though of the cycle. I feel like I got a wonderful emotional education, but when it came to understanding actually what my period was and how to care for my body cyclically, there was not so much of an education there. And I then went out into the world and I was like, culturally and societally, no one gives a shit about this thing, and I love dancing and I'd rather just not have this annoying burden and have to wear this like nappy when I'm trying to dance. So I went on hormonal birth control at quite a young age when I became sexually active at 16. And I had been acting as a practice for student doctors for some time as a pretend patient. And one of my scenarios was that I was a 14-year-old girl who was in a relationship with someone who was pressurizing her to have sex. And the role of the doctor, in order to pass their exam, they needed to send that girl away on that day with an effective birth control method. I sat there for hours on end, hearing a multitude of doctors telling me about every single birth control option out there. So I felt like I was this major expert. And so when it actually came to my turn to go to the doctor and talk about birth control, I didn't need to hear it. I just went straight in there and I was clear on what I wanted, and I said, I'm having this one, and I went away with the pill, and that was it. I used the pill for some time and there was nothing major wrong with it for me. I forgot to take it quite a lot, and I just didn't really like taking this pill in my body every day. It was all just a bit vague how I felt about it, but I also just wanted to try other options because I was this expert in medical birth control. So I was excited to go back to the doctor and say, I'm done with the pill, now I want to try this. And the second thing that I tried was the Nuva ring. It's a plastic ring filled with hormones, and you stick it up your vagina and you change it. And this really started my awful journey with contraception. The side effects from that were horrendous. I gained so much water weight. So I was extremely bloated over an entire summer, and I was traveling with my boyfriend at the time. We were going to a dance intensive and I felt so uncomfortable and unattractive in my body because this weight that I had put on wasn't normal for me. It wasn't healthy body weight, it was water retention. And that led to some really severe self-confidence issues. And then on top of that, I think the emotional effects of the hormones that I was absorbing through the ring added to that. I was really, really low. And then I kind of realized after some time, oh, this is what it is. I was also experiencing bacterial infections. If you've ever had bacterial vaginosis, you will know it is not pretty. And so I took that out. Next thing, I go on the copper coil. I'm like, yes, this is non-hormonal. This is going to be great. By this time, I'm 20, my early 20s. The copper coil caused me to have pelvic pain nearly every day for 7 months. It caused my periods to be very long, caused me to start having pain when I'd never had pain before. Also, because it was non-hormonal, I started ovulating. And I had not been ovulating since I was 15, when my cycles were still regulating, because it takes around 5 years for your cycles to regulate after menarche, your first period. So I was here aged 21, starting to cycle again and experiencing very, very extreme hormonal shifts throughout that cycle that I was not equipped to deal with. I went through thinking perhaps I had bipolar and going down a whole route with myself into my mental health, not realizing that the cyclical nature of what I was experiencing. Finally, because of the pain and because I started getting this feeling that something was going on with my cycles of my hormones, I decided to come off the copper coil and to never go on any hormonal contraception again. And I promise you when I tell you that I was despairing. I remember having the thought, okay, I'm coming off all of this, but that means I'm irresponsible. That means I'm probably going to get pregnant. I was very lucky to have a friend who knew about the fertility awareness method. I'd always thought it wasn't something that I could do because I didn't think I was sensible enough. I didn't know enough about it to really trust that it was possible for me. I had this mentality around the irresponsibility of fertility awareness method, or the irresponsibility of not being on a hormonal method. Maybe harking back to my doctor patient days where I'd maybe absorbed that. But I took the plunge and I decided to get educated properly in fertility awareness with an educator who would support me to do that, because it felt like such a big leap for me. I didn't feel I could teach myself. And that was absolutely life-changing. I realized so much about myself way beyond birth control. It became the secondary side effect to the fertility awareness method was, oh yeah, and I can avoid pregnancy. But oh my goodness, to see on paper essentially my mental health experience and to track how I felt along with my hormones was the single most validating experience of my life. And alongside that body literacy that I was building, I was also able to build emotional literacy with the help of my teachers Alexandra Pope and Shani Hugo Wurlitzer, who teach you to track your cycle and your emotions and your energies through the understanding that your menstrual cycle is a reflection of all natural cycles of life and death and rebirth. I was able to settle myself into an understanding of my spirituality through my body and through learning about cycles in the grander picture of life and of our existence, which came with a lot of grief, even a lot of sadness that this cyclical understanding of nature is not so available to us in modern culture, and that there is this huge menstrual denial, this denial of our cyclical nature, this denial of especially the premenstrual phase and the menstrual phase, which in the understanding of the cycle as the seasons and as the death and rebirth cycle, this denial and resistance of winter, of autumn, of the death and the dying phase, of the contracting in phase, it helped me to understand why I had been suffering, why I was suffering so much with my premenstrual phase, and to externalize that not as something that was wrong with me, but actually something that is wrong with society and the way that we live and the way that we relate to death and to life and to nature. So all in one go, I mean, it wasn't in one go, it was over many months, and even now I'm still learning, but it felt like in one go I gained not only reproductive sovereignty, but I gained deep emotional literacy and a spiritual path. So it was almost a no-brainer that this is what I wanted to also share with others. And I started off with the more emotional and spiritual side of things until I started to realize in my workshops with fellow young women that there was a distinct lack of education that made it quite difficult to ground the cycle in the body, because there was a lack of understanding of actually what is ovulation, and am I ovulating? How can I ground my cycle seasons within the actual real cycle that I'm having, which is not 28 days, it's 60 days, and I've got PCOS and I've got extreme period pain, and there was this gap that I wanted to fill. And so I started down more of the educative route and the physical body route. And so I'm certified in teaching symptothermal method of fertility awareness, and I've also been undertaking a training with Lisa Hendricks and Jack, who's the author of The Fifth Vital Sign, in learning to use the menstrual cycle as a diagnostic tool and to see your cycle as a fifth vital sign of your overall health. And that has just taken me into another level of just this strong knowing that this is the way for women's health, that women's health is meaningless unless we center stage the menstrual cycle, because it is how we experience the world, and it is an anchor and an ally. And so that's where I am now. Personally in my life, I've been using FAM to avoid pregnancy successfully for over 6 years. I practice it myself every day. I'm in the weeds doing the things. I have managed to overcome severe PMS symptoms. I decided not to go down the route of investigating if I had PMDD because I didn't enjoy the way that I was approached by the GP in terms of that. And I've managed to, with nutritional changes, with lifestyle changes, and with going into the depths of that phase, really just come to more balance. It's not easy every time. It's not a road to healing. It's fixed, but it doesn't need to be fixed because I'm not broken. And what I wish to just share with you is not what's worked for me, because what works for me doesn't necessarily work for you, but the wealth of knowledge and information that we as a collective amazingly now have. And it's what I do every day, is just learn more about it. So I channel it through to you, and you must do with it what you wish to do with it. So all my love and allyship to you in your journey to regularity, ease, and potentially even joy and power in your cycles and in your life.